That's the
Hi, everybody. I am your host, Mike Downer, and thanks for joining us on the Concrete Blueprint. I am here with Andrew Quick, the owner and CEO of Quick Concrete Solutions of Des Moines. How are we doing today, Andrew?
doing well, Mike. Doing real well. We got sunshine. Guys are pouring concrete. Crew's happy. Everybody's good.
Being busy is a good problem to have,
It's a very good problem to have. Absolutely, you betcha.
but you know what? Only the real good companies are busy, right?
No, 110%. Seriously, yeah. We're seeing all the fly by night companies fall apart. They're dismantling as we speak. Which you're
Which is
actually
a
seeing
good
an
thing.
influx. Yeah, you're seeing an influx of guys wanting jobs right now that had their own companies. So it's very real. It's short term mind, fly by night is not the way to go. You got to be in it for the long haul. So
So homeowners are sitting there, and I know that I've had this same thought, and you see the little cracks, you see this, that, the little imperfections in your driveway, and you're
yeah,
driving, and you take pride in your home, and being a homeowner and everything. So the big question on people's brains is, can my driveway be replaced, or should I, or repaired, or should I replace it? So what we're going to talk about today is repair or replace.
yeah.
So what what's the difference between what homeowners call a repair and what concrete professionals consider a true repair?
Yes, a really good question. So, oftentimes we find with majority driveways there may be a crack that has started,
Yep.
and that's just it. So, concrete's going to do two things without question. It's going to get hard, and eventually it will crack. Now, the biggest part is if that driveway was properly put together to at the start of the build, right? So they did the proper subgrade, compaction stuff. They put the proper amount of rebar in. They put it on chairs, got that rebar up inside the concrete, so it helps with the expansion and all that stuff. And then obviously the mix design and how they laid it,
Yep.
and then the other big piece of it is whether they cut some corners by adding a bunch of water to that mix, which degrades the integrity of that mix. It brings the PSI level down, which just
Yep.
doesn't make it last as long. So, long story short, particularly with like repairs, we look at repairs like if it's like a hairline crack and it goes
Yep.
point A, point B, where the saw cuts are, perfect. The control joints did their job, and you move on and you seal the crack. And that's just a really simple repair, right? Nothing that's
Yep.
going to cost too much. But most often, what we find is when those cracks become hairlines, they open up to be wide cracks very quickly. And then not only do we see wide cracks, we see changes in elevation between those cracks to where part of the slab is up here, part of the slab is down here. And that's a failure. That's a straight failure of the concrete and the subgrade. And at that point, you're looking at doing some replacement. You want to fix that subgrade. You want to actually get the concrete proper. You want to get the proper amount of rebar in it to stabilize everything. And that's where that varies.
Yeah. So now, since we're talking about repairs,
Yeah.
um, which concrete repairs are just temporary patches, and which ones are actually worth investing in long term?
Yeah. So good question. It's some are kind of dual purpose. So like when you have those hairline cracks, getting on top of it right away and actually putting some sealant down. There's
Yeah.
different cracking. There's a handful of different variety of materials out there that you can use to seal that. But getting on top of that stuff early is absolute paramount. So once moisture gets down into concrete, whether it be through the crack or through the sides of the concrete or wherever, especially in Iowa, we get that freeze thaw cycle.
Yes.
Well, with all that moisture that gets trapped underneath that concrete, it 10x's that expansion and contraction with wet soil freezing and thawing versus if it's dry, proper dried with rock and everything else, you rarely see any movement. It's pretty uncommon if it's done properly the first time, right? So,
Right.
for us, those are some of the like dual purpose, whether it's short term or long term, you can do that. We don't really focus too much on short term fixes. a lot of folks who are looking to just sell their home or move on if they got some unleveled panels. They'll do basically some leveling, just basic concrete leveling stuff, and they're coming in and injecting poly or whatever underneath. There's a few different materials that they can use to get those panels level out, and that's okay. But that's definitely a short-term fix.
Yep.
Sadly, I've seen those fail within a month, 2 months, 6 months. I've seen them last up to 5 or so years. But usually it's on the lower end. And so that's, again, more of a Band-Aid than an actual true repair of the problem. And the other big thing we look at is where are these cracks occurring? Are they occurring towards the garage or down at the bottom? Is the grade, properly draining away? Do we have, other, downspouts and stuff rerouted to keep water away from filling in underneath the concrete? So there's a lot of stuff that goes into the repair side. It's kind of case by case.
So when we're talking about these repairs, is there a point where concrete damage becomes just too expensive to repair cost effectively?
Yeah. So absolutely. Very quickly, anytime you're physically replacing the concrete itself, it dramatically shifts the price. So by the time, if somebody wants one panel of concrete replaced, usually there's 2 or 3 panels that truly need to be replaced. They may just see a problem with one, but then we come, at Quick Concrete Solutions, we've been doing this stuff for a lot of years. So we'll come in, verify that, is it just one panel, or do we see problems across multiple panels where they're starting to settle and fall in and separate apart? Then we realize there was a much bigger issue. So it's literally, again, case by case issue, but more times than not, it goes from a repair to a full on replacement of at least a good portion, at least a third or a third of the driveway. We don't do single panel replacement typically. It's just not a good practice. So usually it's a multi-panel replacement to start from the top.
That's a good point. You're leading me right into my next question. So how should homeowners compare the cost and lifespan of a repair versus a full replacement? I know you were kind of starting to get into that. Where's the line drawn, Andrew?
Yeah, no. So another good question. The biggest part is understanding, okay, your ROI is going to be much greater usually on replacement in totality. But it also depends case by case where the failure is. If you got failure down at the bottom of your driveway, that tells us there's some kind of issue or something going on underneath that panel that's causing it to fail first versus a panel that's maybe at the top of your driveway. So we look at all those factors. And honestly, like if this is, if you're trying to do a quick fix and get in and out and sell the house, you can get away with some of those less costly, repairs, Band-Aids, more so as we call them. But ultimately, if you want something that's true, genuinely going to last a long time, your best case is to replace those sections of panels that are affected.
So you are you're nailing this today because you're leading me right into my next question. So when does repairing a concrete slab make sense, even if replacement might eventually be needed?
Yeah. So again, where we see, with all the seasons we have in Iowa, you get all these external factors that come into play into what the life is of that concrete panel or panels. And, with rain and the snow and again, the 4 seasons we have, love Iowa.
Yep.
But unfortunately, Iowa and northern states are really hard on concrete. And that's just a well-known fact across the industry, especially with all the chemicals that get put down, that also erodes away. But we'll kind of keep focus on the repair piece. We're going to be looking again, case by case basis, where the problem is, what the solution is, and can it be something that's very cost effective that maybe even the homeowner can do themselves, or is it something that they truly need a professional, whether it be us or somebody else who does more concrete leveling things? And that's again, we stay transparent about those things.
Yep.
You know, I can tell you at least, I don't know, once a week, maybe a couple times a week, I'm selling somebody else rather than Quick Concrete Solutions, because we're just not the right fit for their repair. And
I get it.
that's
So in what situations is full concrete replacement the smarter long-term investment?
Yeah, absolutely. Good question again. So the biggest thing that we look at is when we start seeing failure coming from underneath the concrete, where you've got bad soil, either bad soil, you've got water leaks that have caused settling, major settling, factors of that nature. Without question, anytime you get bad base or poor compaction or a really bad concrete mix, which unfortunately, again, those things are never seen up front. Typically, for a client to see, concrete fail, it usually takes at least a year. It might look super pretty, up front. But then by the time they get done adding 20, 30 gallons of water to their mix, or, they maybe every once in a while, it's pretty rare, but the ready mix plant gets, a bad batch, it takes quite a while for that to fail. And in really perspective, it's not that long. It's usually within a year to 2 years or so. But they take a high level concrete from here and they bring it down here because they want it to self level, and it's a lot easier to finish. And the guys love doing it that way because then it's it makes their day a heck of a lot easier. But Quick Concrete Solutions, we don't cut corners. We do work for DoD, Corps Engineers, a bunch of other folks, along with our staple, which has always been our Des Moines Metro residential areas, doing driveways, patios, all the other fun stuff.
So let's bring this into your company. So how do you at Quick Concrete Solutions determine whether a slab should be repaired or replaced?
Yep. So short and sweet is, if we got structural failure within the concrete panels themselves, or from what, again, the sub base is failing, it's without question, we're going to shoot you an option just to replace, not to repair. There is no real repair. Again, there's Band-Aids that can be done, but we're not a Band-Aid company. If you want something that's going to last and be a good long-term fix, we're the company that you want to hire. If you want something that's more of a Band-Aid, there's other folks out there. So
I get it. So here's where I'm going to have you pull from your file of facts in your brain there. And yes, I did say file of facts. So can you share some examples from Des Moines projects that you've worked on where repair was the right call, and then other projects where replacement made more sense? So I know you've probably done both. Give me kind of an example of each one. So I'm asking for 2 examples here. One where you repaired and it made sense to do a repair. Another one where you replaced it and it made sense to do the replacement.
Yeah, absolutely. I can even do better than that. So there's been multiple scenarios where, like for instance, we had a patio, beautiful patio in this guy's backyard area. And he started having some cracking, and it was as simple as, us going in and literally caulking those control joints where those cracks appeared. And it was just, it was literally that simple. This was a very inexpensive, effective way to ensure that there's longevity with this concrete. This was not a major failure. Again, concrete's known to do 2 things: get hard and it will crack. And that's why we put those control joints in place. So hopefully those cracks follow those control joints. And that doesn't happen 100% of the time, and that's okay. That's not 100% guaranteed. But just a great example of a repair. Another, like, we had some steps that, we're slowly starting to lane, but it was over a period of the folks told me about 8 years that they're starting to see that. And at that point, we didn't even do the repair. We outsourced that to, we gave them a number of another company that does, mud jacking. It wasn't within our line, and I knew they could get more life out of it based on the information they gave us. Again, 2 good example of repair, and then the replace stuff. I could give you a million
A
examples.
100. But what's one of your favorite replacement stories? Maybe
Yeah.
you had a guy that just kind of he called you out, like say it's a a tightwad like me, and
Yeah.
I'm making fun of myself on this one, and I'm like, yeah, I want my driveway fixed, but it just makes more sense to replace it.
Yeah. So I got a phenomenal story. A gentleman called me out of Johnston, Iowa, in an area it's all beautiful homes, you know, probably, margin of, probably your average house cost is $1 million, close to a
Right.
million.
Beautiful
Beautiful
neighborhood.
homes, big patios. We didn't originally do the work on the patio that we got called out for, but it was a stamp colored patio, and the guy was having all these cracks appearing. And then also with stamp color stuff, you usually see some discoloration depending on how it's been cared for. The sealant can start peeling. I mean, there's a million things that just, I don't enjoy stamp color stuff.
Right.
We will do it if customer really demands it, and we will do a good job of it. But like, there's all these other factors that just come into place. It's a very cost heavy thing to do long term.
Yep.
So in this specific example, Quick Concrete Solutions, we look at it. Hey, uh, we tried to figure out if there's any way to resurface this thing and make it look nice. But at the end of the day, it came down to it. There was too many small factors that came into play. And I straight up just showed him that we could tear out the entire thing and be almost as cost effective as trying to do all these little things. And it was just a total replacement of that stamp colored patio.
Yep.
And we actually poured just a regular high strength, concrete that you would see, a regular color. And then we did a beautiful double edge finish on it. It looked amazing. He was super happy with it. He doesn't have to worry about all the sealing and all the other stuff that you would with stamp color. And ultimately, long term, saved him a bunch of money.
I was gonna say, it sounds like long term.
Yeah.
You say, I know he was probably hoping for that $1,000 to $2,000 repair,
Yes.
and next thing you know, you're coming in with whatever it was replacement. But long term, the maintenance is going to be a lot lower. There's no more headaches, and it's going to look gorgeous without all those extra costs of having to have it sealed every other year, and all the other stuff. So I love the fact that you guys, are so upfront and honest with your customers. And your honesty and integrity is what I believe has kept Quick Concrete Solutions in business for the last 12 years.
Yeah, about 12 years now. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Working on your second decade, buddy.
Yeah.
So so I always enjoy our talks. I learned a lot today. There's just a lot of things that go into this, and people kind of need to know what they're looking for, and you're doing a great job of breaking it down and explaining it for people, and we all really appreciate that, Andrew.
No, Mike. Yeah, I appreciate you as well. You asked some really good questions today. This is what I love about my job is not only getting a chance to have these conversations with folks day to day as we go out and bid stuff and look at projects. I get to meet a lot of amazing people as we go through the bidding process and meeting folks. And I'm there to educate. That's my number one thing. I want to educate. I'm not there just to sell Quick Concrete Solutions. Hey, we're Waukee, Iowa. We're this local business. Those are all great factors, but end of the day, it comes down to who's the best at what they do.
Right.
And that's why, I spend that time to educate folks that we use standards that, again, the DOD expects, the Corps engineers. These are the highest level clients that exist in the world. And we're following those same standards to do whether it be a patio or a driveway. We don't skip any corner, there's nothing that we skip or cut corners on. So we just want to help people and give people a great product.
Appreciate that. Andrew, I am so looking forward to our next talk. You and I will get together and maybe drink a Pepsi and figure out what we're gonna talk about next.
That sounds wonderful, Mike. I appreciate you. You have a great weekend.
Hey, you too. Thanks a lot, Andrew.
Yes, sir. Thank you.